Dennis, and what a great way to start the morning. Nice and relaxing, and thank you very much to Kevin McCormick for that fabulous piece. Just to get things going again, I'm going to introduce our keynote speaker, Mr. Rory Doody. Rory is the area lead in mental health engagement in Cork and Kerry. He is a service user for over 35 years and brings this to bear on his work. Teaching and consultation with the WHO, Amnesty International and the Hearing Voices Network Ireland, amongst others. A dad, a son, a brother and a friend, he understands the need for a broad network of people to help in his recovery journey and appreciates safe spaces in the community every bit as much as in the services. So without further ado, I'd just like to introduce Rory, and if he's just going to start his video and we can start to hear him as well. He's in his car in a very scenic part of Bantry. So welcome, Rory.
Thanks very much, Brendan. And thanks very much for the invite to come on board. You know, like, it's such a wonderful opportunity, I think, whenever, you know, we can come together and share the good things about mental health. Like, there's just the idea of a feel-good Friday, you know, it's very powerful, like, and there's no reason why we shouldn't look at mental health that way. Like, we look at mental health a lot of the time as something that is full of pain, and certainly in my own experience of it, there's been a lot of pain and a lot of torment, and it has been difficult. But what I've had to learn is that mental health is more than that. Mm-hmm. It's more than that, and when I take time to notice, and I suppose that this is what's happened, the biggest thing that's happened for me since the 12th of March, since the lockdown came with COVID-19, is that I've been able to take more time to notice, you know. There's space now away from the rush of life, like the hurriedness that we have every day, we all have. You know, I worry about that sometimes, like that we're in a mad rush to get somewhere that nobody really knows where that is, you know. Yeah. And we kind of, the one thing that we have right now is an opportunity to pause and kind of reflect. And I think that, you know, if we have some of the luxuries I've grown accustomed to, I've become very grown accustomed to having a roof over my head and having a hot meal during the day. And I have to be honest with you, Brendan, they weren't things that were always there for me, you know. Yeah. And they're not things that I take for granted at all. Mm-hmm. I look where I am now, and I enjoy my life. You know, as I say, I still use the mental health services. I work for the mental health services as well. But my life isn't about mental anguish and mental pain and torment anymore. It's about trying to understand my own mental health, trying to be interested in others and trying to listen to them.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's very important, is the listening part.
It's huge. It's huge. As my wife said to me during the lockdown, she said, I never realized the birds were so loud. Yeah. Yeah. You know, so but like, there's an opportunity with everything, and when I look around and I see what's happening with mental health, when I look around at my own peers, you know, the people that have been there for a long time, you know, since Our Lady's back in the day, and the old hospital in Skibbereen, and, you know, when I think of those places and where we've come from, and I think about how much the conversation on mental health and well-being has opened up, it's really, really nice. But when I go back and I sit down with those lads and we have an old chat, in the last 6 months, we've sat down with each other, we've looked each other in the eye, and we've gone, this isn't too bad. It's bad, but we've come through a lot worse.
Mm-hmm.
With regard to, I'm talking about the things now like cocooning. I'm talking about the thing like, isolating, keeping a safe distance away from others. There's a cohort of people that we meet every day in our lives that do that as part of their being.
Yeah.
I certainly would be one of them.
Yeah. And Rory, can you tell me a bit about your current role and what you do within the mental health services currently?
So I love that. I love what I do now, Like I have a huge opportunity to present the voice of service users and family members and carers. And, what I see with my work is mental health engagement and how we can engage and how can we listen to people and find out what they need and what they want, and how we can introduce that as a part of our services to make the services better.
Mm-hmm.
And the biggest challenge for me, Brendan, is I suppose we always look inward. We look in towards, like the hospital or the doctor, but as I said earlier, if we can look out broader, if we can look out towards the community, because we've a lot going for ourselves in the community. Like you look at your guests today, they're all fantastic. Look at the wisdom that came from the mayor of the county, Mary, and from Joe in the city there. There's incredible wisdom there, what they're speaking about. And I suppose when I speak about mental health engagement, it's about coming up with a space where people can find their voice and they can find the words to talk about mental health, talk about well-being, talk about trying to move away from that everything is illness, that it's a mental illness, or that there's another place to speak about mental health and there's other things that we can say about mental health. Like that's why I suppose I really like the work that you guys do, Brendan, in the Cork Mental Health Foundation, because that's supporting so many people to live independently, and it's about building up skills and finding that piece of finding your own way there, like in Kevin's meditation there, he said, if we can find our own way, and that's what engagement really wants to do.
Yeah. And what would, you've kind of answered some of it, but mental health and self-care, like what we're mainly talking about today, what would that mean to you? Being able to look after your own mental health, because I think fundamentally that's what it comes down to at the end of the day. We can have all the doctors and nurses and health services, but at the end of the day, it's about looking after yourself and having the supports around to help you. So what does it mean to you, self-care and mental health in general?
It means everything, Brendan. It means absolutely everything. I suppose I went into the mental health services when I was about 15 years of age. And I suppose by the time I was in my early 20s, I had abdicated all my own self. I gave away myself to the services.
Yeah.
I often used to talk to my GP about, why do I have to come and talk to you? Why do I have to come and talk to a psychiatrist when I need somebody to talk to? Where's the cup of tea around the table?
Yeah.
Where's the buddy where we'll go down to the pub and have a chat? And that self-care piece, Brendan, is so fundamental, because when mental health comes knocking on your door, it brings the unknown. And when the unknown comes, it's very, very hard it's hard telling not knowing. Yeah. So can we find a place then? It took me, I suppose, 20 years to realize that I had a role to play in my own mental health, that self-care was a very important piece of my own mental health. And that's the case for all of us, really.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's a lot of expectation placed on the words of a doctor and the power of a tablet. And oftentimes those things are very necessary and they work, but it can't be the only thing. Like, self-care is just as important as everything else.
Yeah.
So I think that when we talk about self-care, when we have to cocoon, or when we have to isolate, or when we can't travel outside our county or whatever it might be, we have an opportunity to engage with self-care. We have an opportunity to take note of what works for us. Like when Martina, my wife, when she discovered how loud the birds were in the morning, she was up every morning, and I thought that was just so cool. She realized that she loved the bird song.
Yeah.
And you know, she made that part of her daily life.
Yeah.
And I think it's about that we have an opportunity right now to discover.
Yeah.
And one thing that we'll always find a way, if you look at us right now, we're talking on Zoom and there's loads of people listening and it's a wonderful thing. We'll always find a way to communicate. We'll always find a way. And it's about being open to that, and it's about bringing it to others.
Mm-hmm. And I suppose it leads on to the next question, I suppose, because of the amount of time, you mentioned it a bit there about our ladies and things like that, but what do you see are the kind of major changes within the mental health services over, I suppose, the last 20 years anyway?
There's been a staggering amount of change, and it's hard to see it. It's always very difficult to see it when we're in the middle of it.
Yeah.
When I go back to my early encounters with my own mental health, the most my mother could say about me to the neighbours was, "He's away." The most my dad could say would be, his excuse me, his nerves are at him.
All right. Yeah.
So, and that was it. That was the long and the short of the conversation about mental health 20 years ago. So the fact that we can talk about mental health now in such a broader way, change will come. Like, the most important thing for me is that the outcomes can change, Brendan.
Mm-hmm.
Like, when I look at yourselves, when I look at Cork Mental Health, and like, it was always very important for Cork Mental Health 50 years ago to make sure that people had a place to live. But like, the way it's grown now into education, the way it's grown into training, the way that it's just not enough to ensure that someone has a bed to sleep in, that like the opportunity to kind of grow your life and to become more independent and more part of a community is probably the biggest thing. And I love, like, our ability to communicate around mental health is completely and utterly changed. What we need now is to move from the talk and move from the words into how do we make that better outcomes for people.